Hi, you're with India Post Live, India's first online news conversation web TV. I'm Ishan Russell, and India Post Live is a forum where you too can participate. It's very simple. Just go to indiapostlive.com, log in and post your comments over there. You can comment via any of the social media tools that you have in your phones, your tablets, your laptops. You can comment via Facebook. India Post Live has a Facebook page. You can go post a comment over there. You can use Twitter, hashtag India Post Live to your tweets, or use our Twitter handle at India Post Live. So all these things are out there for you to use to get in touch with us, because the issue that we're talking about today is something that, the entire country is talking about. The new Prime Minister is here. He's just sworn in as the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. And what are the expectations from him? What do we want from him? And what is he promising? And he has his entire cabinet also, who's gotten key ministries, what roles would they play? We'll be discussing all that and more with Neena Vyas. She's a political analyst, a veteran journalist. For those of you who've read The Hindu, Neena Vyas is a very familiar name for you. Ajit Pillai is the former political editor of the Outlook magazine. He joins us in our studio. Thank you very much for coming in, Ajit. We'll also be getting a host of other people from industry, from economists, across the board to get a real sense of what India now wants from Narendra Modi. But first, let's take you through what Narendra Modi is promising. And he's already, as soon as he took oath as Prime Minister, he's already set out a list of promises as far as his website is concerned. And this is what the Prime Minister's website now has to say. Let's just show that to you first. All right, so you can see, in fact, what he says is that, my dear fellow Indians and citizens of the world, a very warm welcome to the official website of the Prime Minister of India. And then he talks about the historic mandate that he got, the verdict that was delivered. And he's seeking active participation to script a glorious future for India. And he says, let's work together for a dream of strong, developed and inclusive India that actively engages with the global community to strengthen the case of world peace and development. And then he later goes on to say that he'll leverage power of technology and social media to communicate with people across the world. So that is just summing up what the new Prime Minister has set out as his agenda, and you can certainly contribute to that through social media, and you can contribute through social media over here as well. But Neena, what do you make of Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister now? He's here, he has his house in order. There's nothing that can go wrong as far as, there's no ally compulsions, there's no difficulties within the party. So very little to combat and a lot to deliver.
Yes, because he has promised the moon in a way to the people, because, good times are here, and the day the results came in, he said good times are already here, So all that, and there is a huge aspiration from as far as the people are concerned, aspiration and hope, and that's why they got such strong numbers in the election. So naturally he has a lot to deliver, because he's promised this whole business of as if only Gujarat has been shining under him and the rest of India is impoverished, and Gujarat is doing well, but all the census and NSSO figures don't really live up to his claims. So now he will not be able to fool all of India all the time with just publicity. I feel, because if you claim that Gujarat is shining, and if you're not in Gujarat, you don't know what the figures are there, and you can't compare. Like Tamil Nadu is doing much better, Maharashtra is doing much better. But of course, losing the election, winning the election is everything, So he has won. He has, fair and square, he carried out a hugely successful campaign, and he has won a majority. He has no coalition compulsions. So to that extent, I think the RSS agenda will also have to be looked at, not immediately by him, but somewhere down the line, say 2 or 3 years. One of them is Ram Temple, etc., etc. But depends on what else he does, whether power sector, finance, whether he puts it in order, and other issues.
All right, but Ajit, as far as promises go, the industry also expects a lot. You can see top industrialists sitting at the swearing-in ceremony. So in terms of expectations, not just the common man, but the slightly uncommon or the better off man also has a lot of expectations.
Yes, the industry is in very bad shape, as we all know. And about 2 months ago, Standard Chartered Bank released a report of the top 11 corporates, and their debts were 8 lakh crores. So they would want to generate money from somewhere. last year, the RBI also had figures which showed that, India's external debt is $390 billion, out of which the government exposure was only 20%. The rest of it came from the private sector, and they owe that money. Now, how do they get back their money? They expect Modi to launch special purpose vehicles, give them projects. Of course, I don't know whether he can persuade banks to give them more loans when they already owe them so much. And in the last 10 years, the banks anyway have written off 1 lakh crore bad debts. 95% of them, according to the RBI deputy director, was from the corporate sector. So they would expect this so-called kickstart, the so-called paralysis in government, as everybody accused the UPA of, was basically because such relief was not being given, and the corporate sector made wanton investments between 2006 and about 2008, and they put money into projects which did not yield any results. So right now their debt is 7.3 times their earnings before tax and depreciation. So what they would want are these projects which are tailored, and you have this very nice term, special purpose vehicle, and given to them so that they can revive.
All right, so in terms of the corporates, their expectations could be satisfied. But as far as the expectations of the ministry, Neena ji, I covered BJP when you were, a doyen over there. So these are all your old friends who've been waiting in the sidelines for a very long time, hoping that somehow a miracle would happen, and it has happened.
Well,
so, and
10 years,
in terms of cabinet, how do you see it shaping
See, 10
up?
years they were in the opposition. I'm told that Arun Jaitley, I believe the list is out, that he's getting both defense and finance, which is huge. All the big deals will be made in defense, and he's a trusted loyalist of Modi. Rajnath Singh is supposedly getting home, and he was sworn in first immediately after Modi, as we all saw. And whether there were rumors that internal security will be taken out, but I have a feeling if he doesn't take out internal security, what he will do is that the heads of all the agencies like IB, RAW, NSA of course, and NIA and others, that they will report directly to the Prime Minister. To that extent, it will be a weaker Home Minister than Chidambaram was, because when Chidambaram was the Home Minister, these agencies were reporting to him. And Sushma Swaraj is I think getting the External Affairs Ministry. So now, as you know, this initiative he's taken of inviting SAARC leaders to the swearing in, and that itself is a kind of you can say a diplomatic initiative. So I suspect that foreign policy, as all prime ministers have done, foreign policy is very much a prerogative of the Prime Minister. So how much freedom Sushma Swaraj will have, I'm not very sure. And as everybody knows, you will know, I know, that Sushma Swaraj and Narendra Modi don't hit it off at all.
Right.
They hugely, there's a big trust deficit between them. So that remains to be seen. But I think it's a honeymoon period for Narendra Modi government, and I think he has won the mandate, and I suppose people wish him well, and nobody wants India not to do well. Whether those Modi critics or those who admire Modi, both. So I think he should do it. But there is a suspicion. See, the corporates have always backed various Congress governments or whichever government has come. But as Ajit just now said, for the entire corporate world to be present at the swearing-in ceremony, and the huge amount of money that was spent. I suspect from what, I don't have the figures, but what you could see by way of advertisements and hoardings, that Modi, I would say, rather than the BJP, spent more on the election campaign than all the other political parties put together in the whole country. That much money has been spent. Now, if that money has come from the corporates, but directly, indirectly, it would have had to come from corporates, then they are going to get it back. It's like an investment for them, and they are going to get it back. And I think they are just waiting for initiatives which will mean, land deals and other things and projects and all kinds of concessions, tax concessions through SEZs or special vehicle projects, as Ajit mentioned. So I think you will not, I'm afraid, it might be a bit like a rip-off. Somebody is going to pay. If the corporates are going to make huge profits, which they are waiting to, and that's why they're backing Modi, then somebody is going to pay. And I don't understand, it will be the consumer who will pay finally. Who else will pay? Finally, it's the retail consumer who pays.
All right, so let's also listen in from the people, what the kind of voices that we've got. We went out into the streets and tried to find out from people what their expectations were. We also went and talked to a few famous people also, and here are their expectations as well.
I think we are going to see the changes, and it's already been started.
Since there will be a very minimal cabinet, but it will be delivering the best. It will be delivering the maximum, as he said, minimum ministry with a maximum governance.
The change is welcome, and Modi seems to be a person with a thinking head, and the kind of move he is making with the streamlined ministries, less in number with more of operational efficiencies. I think that seems to be creating a platform which is going to be progressive in nature.
We are going to see positive changes for sure.
Not exactly impressed, but I'm looking forward for the change after this 10 years of the rule of UPA.
All right, we also have a few guests coming in on Skype. Alok Mukherjee joins us. He is the director of the Smart Card Forum. Alok, expectations from the new Prime Minister now that he's assumed office?
I'll tell you, our expectations are very simple. The government must perform either way, whether it is negative or a positive. Because for an industry, a decision is required. You can't wait, you can't say, you can't delay. And that is what kills the industry. In so long, they keep on taking a decision, even if they are the worst, the industry has an ability to find a way to do that. But it is a very surprising, and it is the first time in the history of the country when you are making all the industrialists to sit there. And who are those industrialists? The 6 or 7. And all of them are some way or other, are some kind of a problem with the government or with the investigative agency. Does it mean that this country is run by these guys? No. There are many, many other stakeholders, those who contribute to the economy. And I think that it's a very, very big setback.
Fair enough. Interesting point you make over there about who's sitting in front and who's not. But Paul Divakar also joins in. Paul, thank you very much for coming in. The Prime Minister has just been sworn in, so has his cabinet. Your expectations and analysis of his choice of cabinet ministers, and what can we expect from them?
I think it's to be seen, but of course the huge mandate that he's got, also from the Dalit Adivasi, must now they have to deliver, or at least on the issues of marginalized communities. He has gone public during his Muzaffarpur rally in Bihar. That there will be, this is going to be a decade of Dalit rights. And we really hope that is what will come, and yet to be seen. There are very clear 7 clear points that we have made it up and demanded. One is maintenance that is there, and this is the Scheduled Rights Prevention of Atrocities Act Ordinance Amendment that needs to be passed by the Parliament before it expires, before September. Second, I think there is a huge amount of expectation about the resources. It has come in as the scheduled caste sub-plan and tribal sub-plan, and it's already there in bill form. We hope that the PM will take priority and make sure that it is passed in Parliament. But this will give a huge amount of confidence to the Dalits and Adivasis. And clearly the government makes business. And of course, there is a bill which is reservation in promotion. It has been due for a long time. We hope that this government will take it up, as also the Reservation Act. Till now, it is being used only as an executive action, and there is no legislative mandate for it. We hope this government will also bring in an insurance package for the security of women, and I think this is very critical as we have seen the spate of violence against the women. These are the main aspects that we hope the government is going to do, even before it makes a declared comments.
All right, so many, it's the industry saying the industry should be favored. You're talking about the decade of Dalit rights, as Narendra Modi himself has pointed out. Sudeep Srivastav is an activist, a lawyer, and has been traveling across the country and observing this election. Sudeep, thanks very much for coming in. Prime Minister's just sworn in, so is the cabinet. How does it look to you? A lot of expectations riding on them this time around.
Expectation from Narendra Modi is that he's known
Excuse me, I would just request somebody has the India Post Live website open on their screen, on the laptops. If you could just close that website, please.
Shan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
What I'm saying that Narendra Modi is known for sectorial approach, and that too not in terms of his religious belief or RSS training. Why I'm saying so, that I will give you an example. In the name of Gujarat, he actually shared the entire project of shifting some big lines to a Madhya Pradesh sanctuary, which was a project approved by Ministry of Environment and Forest, monitored by Supreme Court. Supreme Court okayed that for the conservation and benefit of the species of Asiatic lion, they also be shifted for another country, Slow Kanpur, but that to the government of Gujarat, this Gujarat approach, see beyond Gujarat. If prevented that coming to reality. Similarly, the sectorial approach into with regard to industry. If you talk about jobs for literate person, literate young people, but they will come when the new industries will come up. Those new industries will require more land, and more lands will keep coming from the areas where Dalit and Adivasis are residing. So even unless you address all these issues, putting a fast.
All right, we're having a bit of an audio problem, Sudeep, so I'll just sum up and we'll try to fix that with you. But just to sum up what Sudeep was saying, he was talking about various expectations in terms of while you might cater to the industry, you'll have to take land out from Dalits or Adivasis.
I wonder what he's going to do with the Land Acquisition Act, where land has become very expensive now.
I mean, it's almost
so whether is he going to resign that? Is he going to change that legislation which is already passed by the previous government? And the other point I want to know, I'm not very sure on this. Who is this Sanjeev Balia, who's one of the ministers, MOS?
I've never
Is he one of the riot accused in Muzaffarnagar?
I'll have to see.
I'm not very sure.
I'll ask my producer
I'm not
to check
very
on that.
sure. Because I hope we don't.
Sanjeev
Balia.
Sanjeev Balia. Just check on that. Just see whether that he was one of the Muzaffarnagar
because you know, do we have a potential Mayaben Kodnani in the, you know.
Yeah, but that could be really embarrassing. But the point that I think everybody is making, it's almost a super prime minister. We've chosen Superman as our prime minister. And the prime minister's office would really be controlling a lot, wouldn't it, Ajit, also? I would like to get him in.
Yeah, I mean, from what one hears is you have a super PMO. Now, which makes most of the ministers, except for the key ones, like Jaitley and a few others, unimportant, insignificant. So this was something which Vajpayee also did, where he had a super PMO presided over by Brajesh Mishra and N.K. Singh, and they would just act on behalf of ministries. And there were various cabinet notes sent up saying, for example, upping foreign foreign investment into telecom, raising it to 75% was unheard of anywhere else in the world. And I think Shamal Ghosh, the secretary, did say that I had pointed all this out. This was never discussed. You just floated a GOM and cleared it. So, you know, you will find it even more pronounced in this government because there are no allies to raise issues. There is no one to oppose him. So he's not only a super PM, he's also got a super PMO, which is going to be the nodal agency for everything. So many of the ministers are going to have little to do.
That is also the way he functions in Gujarat, I'm told.
But
both by
like-
BJP leaders there and the opposition there, that's how he functions in Gujarat. That the key decisions for all ministries are taken by him. So the ministers, many of them are really decorative positions, you know.
But
The key
can it
decisions
function?
for the
Can it really function? Because India seems to have chosen that. India wants
Yeah.
expediency in every function.
Which is, I mean, to some extent, delayed decisions, and because take even the food security, which the previous government passed. You see, the endless debate for years whether 90% of the population should be covered, 100%, 75%. My view was get it going. Cover the first 30% or 40% of the most vulnerable sections, and then you have extra and see how it works, and then move upwards.
Right.
But there was endless debate and no implementation, which I think is very, very tiresome. So yes, to some extent, you needed things to be speeded up. The red tape is some cut out. But if you see too much concentration of power in one hand, also means a lot of things, a lot of other things. We saw what happened in Gujarat. I mean, the day the results came out, there was a indictment by the Supreme Court against the functioning of the police, which was the Home Department, which was Mr. Modi himself. I mean, the people who had been given the death sentence by the Gujarat High Court, the Supreme Court found no merit and actually lambasted the handling of the case by the police, which was directly under the charge of Modi. So we also had that. I'm not saying that maybe he's a changed man and he's got his, this election has fulfilled his dream and maybe he will do things differently in Delhi. But there is that background, we shouldn't forget.
All right, fair.
I think, you know, one point, when you have a super PMO, what happens is that if the decisions are good, it's well and good. If the decisions are faulty, flawed, favoring somebody, it just happens.
And there are many in the BJP, within the BJP also would be looking at that and waiting and watching with the kind of mistakes that Narendra Modi makes. But Aminullah Khan joins us. He's an economist. Thanks very much for coming in, Aminullah. But as far as the expectations, we've been talking about industry has its own expectations, Dalit activists have their own expectations. The Indian economy certainly hasn't been doing all that well. Young people want jobs. How does one balance this out? How does one take everybody along? Is it that easy? I mean, this is what I think you've been studying all your life.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't envy this situation at all because on one hand, we are looking at tremendous expectations and conflicting expectations. The point that I would like to make is that for the new Prime Minister, on one hand is this massive mandate, is a clear goal, very, very simple, difficult but simple expectations in terms of numbers, but it is in the conflicts that the elephants in the room lie. For example, one very straightforward conflict would be the one between interest rates and inflation. Half the country wants interest rates to go down tomorrow, and that's easy. I mean, you just get the RBI governor and bully him into reducing interest rates. But the next thing will be inflation. So how are we going to manage those two things? That is going to be a serious problem as far as the internal conflicts are concerned. The second big conflict, look at the cabinet today. You know, here is a government that promises clean government and went on and on about corruption. But then you have good familiar old faces who don't really reek of credibility. So if you are again projecting a certain Ram Vilas Paswan and Nitin Gadkari and so on, you will have those kind of issues also to tackle. The third kind of issue will be, what you do with the sensitive issues of oil pricing, of gas, of petroleum, of diesel. will you be able to push that reform agenda and cut those subsidies down, therefore immediately raise energy prices and face that backlash? Because you see, whatever is being done now, whatever will be done now, will result in increased growth and jobs with a gestation period. And in that, if these core issues get disturbed, which is inflation, interest rates, and expectations on clean government, then it is going to be a serious question to answer. And I'm not even going to talk about what will happen with the rupee. That's something that is again something that everybody is going to look at. The patriotic ones among us will feel very happy if the rupee goes to 56 rupees, but the entire ITES sector is shuddering already at the rupee going strong. So it's a mix of a number of things, and my big problem is that even giving all benefits of doubt to the government and saying that here is a strong, decisive government, in that strong decisiveness is an inherent conflict, and managing that conflict is really going to be difficult.
All right, so basically a lot of conflicts.
I just want to make a comment. You see, it after the last Manmohan Singh government, not UPA 1, but UPA 2, or the last few years especially, strong, decisive sounds very good, and it is good to some extent. But it is not the be-all, end-all. Strong for what? Strong. You take a strong decision, but it may be the wrong decision. You are decisive, but you are again taking a wrong decision. Then what? You're doing things in a hurry, but it may not be the right thing. As I said, for 10 years, the apart from the tom-tomming and all that, all the data doesn't show that the Modi government in Gujarat really delivered on the social indicators, health, education, environment. It didn't deliver. In fact, the Gujarat, the people, education, health, etc., they slipped by the infant mortality, maternal mortality, in terms of state rankings. They slipped in terms of state ranking. Of course, they improved because all of India had improved.
But what would be Modi's model? Because, see, many would say that in terms of, for the UPA had its flagship programs and said the RTI, or in terms of changing legislation. I think that was the UPA and UPA 2's legacy.
Right-based legislation, what they call right-based legislation.
Yes, for Modi it's been more in terms of stats, in terms of the increase in GDP.
Modi in Gujarat, the SEZs and corporates and quick decision making, the shifting of Tata Nano, for example, the way he did it, like one day Mr. Ratan Tata goes and meets him, next day the agreement is signed, and for 1 rupee or something absurd, like he said he'll give him so much land, he was given a huge loan, and it was set up. By the way, in that assembly election, the BJP lost Sanand, where the auto hub has come up. So whatever reasons are. But the point is that, it's all very well, it sounds very well, but apparently now the Tata, that plant is not doing so well economically in anything. See, these are, it sounds very good, he took a very quick decision, he did this, he did that, so much investment came in, but what happens afterwards? All his claim of foreign investment, for example, the Vibrant Summits, you go to the website, these are totally false claims. I've studied it. He claimed, the website claimed that it got $800 billion, which even whole of China has not got for the last 10 years. I mean, it's totally absurd. It's totally absurd.
Alright, so many would then say that this is almost like an Obama campaign, that you come in with a lot of pomp and show, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're not trying to rain on the Prime Minister's parade. We completely respect the mandate before we start getting trolled on the internet. We completely respect the mandate, but we're trying to raise fears and concerns that many in the country would also share about the future of the government. So as far as the pomp and show versus delivery, do we see a lot more PR and, as he promised, an engagement through social media happening rather than active legislation?
I think we will see a lot of publicity. Not that Modi will not act, but there is one problem I have is that how serious is he about his promise of inclusive growth, of taking all the communities together. One has, and there's also the question of freedom of speech. He's known to not take kindly to criticism. And there are fears, and there is this hope that he does not, tread along those lines, which would hurt a lot of people. And as we know, he's got 33% of the mandate. So there are a lot of people, they may have voted different parties, who actually voted against the BJP. And there are fears in that set of people.
All right. There are a few more voices that I promised to get you earlier. So I'll have my producer play those all famous personalities talking about Narendra Modi and expectations.
I just want to
For
add
the first
one
time you have elected Prime Minister of India who not merely comes from a very poor family, but he has completely non-anglicized, non-public school background. And therefore, this is a significant paradigm shift for me in nation's leadership. And the present Prime Minister is being very enthusiastically supported by the same anglicized classes, especially the youngsters, who are the global youngsters in their consciousness, are the most enthusiastic supporters of Mr. Modi. That was proved in these elections.
We still have a huge issue between the urban and the rural and the semi-urban, the immigrant population, crime, corruption, women's issues, roads. These are all issues which need to be tackled.
Right from the day one, Narendra Modi has been advocating that though BJP gets the single largest party, we are going to form an NDA government involving all the friendly parts. Apart from that, he has also told all the chief ministers of the states are going to be part and parcel of this government. So it indicates how importance is being given to the states.
Basically, Mr. Modi is faced with a problem of very high expectations. And unlike earlier elections in the country, he has talked about development and he has shown that he is concerned about unemployment, inflation. So basically, one would expect him to sort out the economic problem straight away.
Policy spectrum available to a government does not abruptly change just because a new regime has come into power. The policy spectrum is overwhelmingly defined in the short term by the capacities of the state. Now these capacities, of course, Mr. Modi has committed to transforming and enhancing these capacities in a very, very speedy manner. This is his commitment. But till this transformation occurs, the policy spectrum will roughly remain what it was.
I think like the rest of India, my expectations are huge because the main reason is that we have had such a bad time in the last 10 years. Everything about India was making us feel depressed. Everything was negative. Nothing was getting done. If anybody had some good work to do, somewhere it got blocked. And apart from that, daily living was becoming very, very difficult. The people deserve jobs, the youth have huge aspirations. And instead of that, I particularly was very upset that instead we were spending thousands of crores on just giving people, throwing money at them, mostly getting leaked out under the NREGA and such programs. That kind of money, if usefully invested, could make each young person become an entrepreneur, become self-employed, do some good work, learn some skills, and that would have given a huge positive impact. So I think the change from terrible to even normal will be a huge change.
Modi doesn't have Jadoo ki chhadi. After all, he will have to settle down. It will take about a month or so. And he is coming for the first time in the central government. He has not even entered the parliament earlier, either houses. So he is a great administrator. He has proved himself so well in Gujarat. And people expect that, this man, because of seeing his body language during the campaigning, observing his oratory skills and the promises he has made. So people of the country has great, great expectation.
Politically, women's empowerment needs to be addressed very strongly and promptly, by which I mean to say that, 33% in parliament and in all the bodies, political bodies, right down to panchayat. It has not happened. I would say 50%. I mean, the women's population in India is more than 50%. So, आधे से अधिक हूँ, as a woman I'm saying, आधे से अधिक हूँ, पर अधिकार से वंचित हूँ. So this adhikar has to come to us, and I hope that, because this will really bring a great awakening and a great empowerment to women without doubt.
पहले मोदी साहब कहते थे कि भाई पाकिस्तान हमारे सैनिकों के सर काट लेंगे और हम उसके बदले 10 सर काट के लाएंगे. हम अब आगे हम प्रधानमंत्री होंगे तो हम उसका जवाब देंगे. और अब मोदी साहब इतनी अब सरकार आने के बाद बदल गए हैं. वो अब ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई हम नवाज शरीफ को न्योता दे रहे हैं और हमारे यहाँ बुला रहे हैं. अब तो ये वैसे गलत है.
आतंकवादी खत्म करेंगे और खुशियाँ आएंगी.
All right, so you can see a burden of expectations really on the new Prime Minister. Neena Vyas, I'll give you the final word to close the discussion now.
Well, I don't know, maybe today, tomorrow, I wonder whether he's going to give biryani to Nawaz Sharif or not, because the BJP did a huge amount of propaganda that, you know, Congress government was giving biryanis to Pakistanis when our men were being killed by the terrorists, you know. So I wonder whether biryani is on the menu or not.
All right, final word, Rajiv.
I think I'll stay with diplomacy. I think, you know, it's a good gesture, one can't deny that. But people reading, you know, it as a diplomatic breakthrough is going a bit too far. You know, you don't do such, make announcements or any significant announcement so dramatically. It involves a lot of discussion. You have to take on board a lot of people. As we have learned in the past, Rajiv Gandhi went and signed the accord and it fell flat. The bus ride to Lahore by Vajpayee, 2 months later you had Kargil. So
Agra summit also.
Yes, so one has to sort of sit down and talk and not say, okay,
see what are the real takeaways.
Yeah, instead of saying, you know, this guy has come for a cricket match, he's coming for a swearing in. There's a great, you know, breakthrough. It's not.
All right, Paul, I'll give you the final word and we'll wrap this up then.
No, I think just one observation that you had made comparing Obama and Modi, I think that need not be done, because Obama had came from a different background, from a minority, taking the country which was riddled with such huge problems at the time, and I think he has pulled it in a different way. Whereas Modi comes from the majoritarian background, and I think it's a totally different aspect. So he has a lot to prove, also because of the track record that we have heard, very well articulated by both your live guests there. So I think it's a different set of things, and then Modi must instill confidence on minorities, on Dalits, Adivasis, and especially those who are trying to protect land and resources for the people. So he has a much more of a challenge in proving, delivering, and in taking real security and beyond the media shows that we have seen so far.
Right, Alok, you've been listening in very patiently. We'll give you the final word, 30 seconds. We seem to be having a bit of an audio problem. Alok, we'll try to get back to you. We'll try to reconnect and have this discussion continued. So we'll take a quick break right now.
I think now you will be able
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. See, I'll tell you I think we are criticizing the Modi too much, because there is a big, the difference between the central subject, the state subject. Now, if you want to deliver something in India, you have to control the center. And that is what the Modi has done. If something you have to reach to the poor, then you have to control the central. You have to control the central subjects as such, because the states are basically an executing agency. And also, one of the panelists was talking about that he has a very autocrat, the way he operates in Gujarat. I think that's the only way in India even can operate. If you feel so good, you have to operate it. Fine, if somebody gets hurt, it doesn't make any difference to it. Again, you can take another decision to correct it. But you get into discussion and nothing happens. And by that time, the Manmohan Singh is out. So that's really, you can't work. And this is what I feel. So
all right, so
as
India.
Man, I'm happy.
All right, so you're happy. India certainly happy. A lot of people certainly who voted for Modi are very happy today. He's the Prime Minister of the country. A lot of expectations riding on him. A lot that he has to deliver on. Can he, will he? Well, he has 5 years to prove. So let's see what he does. Thank you very much, Alok, for coming in. Sudeep and Paul for joining us via Skype and Google Hangout. Nina and Ajit, thank you very much for coming into our studio. Well, that's it. So what do you expect from Narendra Modi? Keep writing us, keep sending your tweets in. We're getting a whole host of them as far as his cabinet is concerned, and we'll be taking those up in just a bit. Thanks so much for watching.